All right, we're live.
All right. Welcome, everyone. We'll get started in just a few minutes, so just be sure to say hi in the chat for now. And we'll get started around 5:05 just to let everyone enter. And to everyone's joining, we'll get started in just in a minute. So feel free to say hi in the chat box or introduce yourself.
I was thinking maybe having something else besides water. Are we getting everybody in?
Yep. And I think we'll start right now.
All right, let's get started then. Welcome, Alliance HOSA members, to our December guest speaker event. Good evening. I am Mansa Prasad. Just to introduce myself, I'm the Secretary of Alliance Academy HOSA. HOSA is a student-led organization for healthcare that strives to prepare students to be the future of healthcare. I am so excited and honored to be here tonight with all of you to learn more about neurosurgery.
I'm a DT and I'm part of the Sophomore Council, and I'm so eager to get started. Before we get started, I would like to give a quick shout out to Riverwatch and South Forsyth Middle School students for joining us today. We hope you enjoy your first high school informative event with the Lions Academy HOSA.
Tonight's guest speaker, actually we have two. Dr. David Langer and Dr. John Bookvar are two amazing neurosurgeons working at Lennox Hill Hospital and have also starred on the medical docuseries Lennox Hill on Netflix. Dr. Langer is the chair of neurosurgery at Lennox Hill Hospital and vice president of neurosurgery at Northwest Health Western Region. Dr. Bookvar is the vice chair of neurosurgery at Lennox Hill Hospital and director at the Brain Tumor Center and the Pituitary Neuroendocrine Center of the Division of Neurological Surgery and the New York Head and Neck Institute at Lennox Hill.
He has a much longer title than I do.
The hospital is really long. Okay. On behalf of Alliance HOSA, we give you a warm welcome. To start off, I have a really important question, perhaps the most valuable question of the whole session. How is the snow in New York today?
I like snow. John doesn't live in New York. He just stays up in the burbs. He has a 4-wheel drive truck with a siren on it. He can go wherever he wants up there. I walk to work. I trudge to work in the snow. He just stays home.
We got about a foot of snow up here, so I shoveled myself out at about noon today. That's how long it took me. But many places up in Binghamton got up to 3 feet of snow. One of the biggest snowstorms we've had up here in years.
Wow.
Yeah. We're actually in Georgia, so we don't get a lot of snow. Snow is insane to us. So, thank you so much for answering that. You have definitely inspired a lot of students to pursue medicine and healthcare. So let's get into it. Let's get into the questions that we have. Aditi, why don't you start us off?
Okay, so since the most important question has been answered, can you talk about your high school experience? And did you want to be in the medical field? And what kind of extracurriculars were you a part of? Just your high school journey.
John?
I'll take this one. I think David and I probably had somewhat similar high school experiences because both of our fathers were physicians. So that was an indelible impact on me as a high school student. I have an identical twin brother, and he was not interested in medicine. So it was definitely a nature versus nurture thing. I was interested in medicine for as long as I could remember. I think one of the things that we find, and I ask this when I interview my resident applicants, is what have you done in leadership in your life? And to me, that remains an important distinction about a personality. And just looking at you guys on this panel, you guys are obviously leaders, and being a leader is something you can display in middle school, high school, college, residency. And that really says a lot about the type of person that you are. I was on the student council of my high school. I played an active role in leadership positions in my high school. I was an athlete. I played soccer. I know David was a rower. So those kind of team mentality, but achieving leadership positions, I think are important, whether you're in middle school or high school. And that's the way, I was guided by my father, who was a physician, and my mother as well. David?
I agree. I mean, I probably wasn't as cool as John was in high school. He was top of the food chain. I was, I matured pretty late, honestly.
He's still maturing. He's still maturing.
I identify with nerds, and I remember I was in chorus, and everybody made fun of me. And in fact, I turned during the yearbook picture. I hid because I was in the back. I didn't want to, because back then, a guy in chorus, you were made fun of. But I had a rough high school. High school was not easy for me, really not until my senior year. I just started to gain more confidence. But I think that's something that happens to a lot of people. I think the best advice is if you feel like people don't, get you, or if there's a feeling like you're not cool enough, or, you like to do things that other people think aren't interesting or aren't typical, just tell them to go screw off. I think, the truth is just be yourself. I spent a lot of time in high school thinking I wanted to be somebody else. I wanted to be an athlete, or I wanted to be on the basketball team, or I wanted to be the president of my class. And I wasn't capable. I wasn't really at that point in my life yet. But I slowly found my track. And it's funny, I think those who are more, get better feedback, I think younger, sometimes they fade because they kind of believe the news too much, and they take the hard work for granted. And I think my experience as a young kid, which was difficult emotionally, I went through some tough stuff. It definitely made me more work even harder. And you do carry a lot of that stuff into your adulthood. You know, I'm still that chubby little kid when I was 13, and you just do, and that's just the truth. So I'm only saying this because trust me, you know, I'm sure a lot of people look at John and I want to be just like those guys, and they look at themselves right now like I'm nothing like them. But in the end, that doesn't matter, you know. And you need to, you know, you just because you don't look like us, if you're not a white guy, you're obviously not going to look like us. But you can find ways to be yourself and respect the fact that we weren't always this way. You know, John and I both got very lucky in the careers we chose, in the people that we surrounded ourselves by, and the environment that we created at Lennox. And then some, you know, out of the sky comes you know, people want to make a movie about it. That's kind of ridiculous. So, but we were lucky because we want to use this to make sure we encourage all you guys to consider doing something cool with your life.
Now, most of our members are high schoolers going into college. So how do you think you changed from high school to college? And how did that lead to who you are today?
I changed more from I want to say medical school through residency. You know, college I made a big transition because I decided to row. You know, and rowing for me was it both gave me the confidence because it was so difficult to do, I think, and it's very painful and it's self-abusive and no one cares. You know, it's kind of like one of the hardest things you can do. And honestly, no one cares if you win or lose except you. And you can have a great race and lose and have a bad race and win. So it's the ultimate team sport. It's the ultimate collaborative sport. So those things I think stayed with me. You know, we obviously, John and I both worked very hard in college. And you know, as a varsity athlete, you know, I had more fun in medical school than I did in college, actually. But I think that's when you really begin to learn a lot about yourself, you know, understanding what makes you tick. And I think it's really important to be confident in whoever you are. You know, I needed some external things to help me along. No one talked to me this way either. Like maybe if someone said, you're fine, it might have been better. But nonetheless, I think you have to be your own self-motivator and you have to accept who you are and then find ways to maximize your impact.
Well, I think, David, you touched on an important point. You know, when you transition from high school to college, for most people, that means being quite a bit more autonomous and away from your parental upbringing and the rules that govern the household that you guys live in high school. And really, when it comes down to, if you're interested in medicine or any career for that matter, you got to learn how to prioritize your time. And I think one of the biggest things for me was really, how do I stay efficient without somebody telling me when I had to go to bed, when I had to, go to practice. And again, it's like everything else we do as surgeons, you develop habits, right? And the one thing I think is important to, without being crazy about it, is make sure you develop habits early. And the habits of studying. You can work hard, and like David said, you can play hard. But when you go to college, start learning efficiencies, start being autonomous, start knowing when to work, start knowing when to stop working, start knowing when to play, and start knowing when to stop playing. And I think you'll get better and better at being more and more efficient, because as you age, and especially if you enter a field like neurosurgery, or if you want to have a family and be a surgeon, for example, you're going to have to balance those dual responsibilities at some point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, college, I think it's just like a really different from like high school, and you have to find your own motivation. So going with motivation, what were some challenges you faced in college, and what was your motivation?
You know, in college, for me, I went to the University of Pennsylvania, and I was pre-med at Penn, and that was competitive. You go to a school like any school where you're pre-med, you're going to run into, what we call gunners or cutthroats, or, somebody else who is, just as smart, if not smarter than you. And it was hard to get C's in a class. and I think I got 1D in a class, and not because I didn't really try hard, but I had, I was social and I wanted to balance life. And, all of a sudden you realize that the amount of time that you have to spend to get to where you want to be is a significant compromise.
Yeah, I mean, I would second that. I mean, there's a lot of self-doubt creeps in always. You can't help but doubt yourself, and especially if you don't do. John and I were lucky enough to do this before. It's gotten very competitive. Maybe even more so than when we were your age. For better or worse, that's just the way it is. I wouldn't worry about it. You just do the best you can. John and I both were lucky, I think, in some ways that we went to school and we did. It'd be hard to see how now, knowing we'd be different, but I think it's hard. But hard work pays off no matter what it is, and you have to overcome your own self-doubt. That's the first thing. Be confident in yourself. There are going to be some tough times. We've all had them. No one's successful without failure. No one's successful without feeling like they could have done better or could have worked harder. It's impossible. But if you keep your eye, on that North Star and keep focusing on your goals, they may change. Just because it doesn't work out the way you wanted to, chances are you're going to have another opportunity because of that. So just stick to your guns. Don't be so hard on yourself. And also remember, I was struggling with some stuff at work, and I talked to a friend of mine who said, it just all doesn't make a difference. So, and it's true. I mean, it's kind of in a metaphysical sense. Obviously, you can't live your life, like that. But don't be so hard on yourself. But be hard on yourself. Work hard. Overcome your fears, and drink a beer once in a while when you can. After you're 21, it's important. It's important to have fun. One of the things that John and I we really get a kick out of is we have a great time at work. My wife jokes that I never want to come home because we have a great time. We just do. I look forward to coming to work. I come during a snowstorm. He doesn't. He stays home. But and there's something to be said about that. John knows, and we talk about this all the time, how lucky we are. But it starts now. It starts meeting the people, your friends, finding people that you like to be with, and invest in those people. They're going to come back someday to you. And I think that's why it's important to have a social life and have fun and be yourself, because then you'll make real relationships. They just won't be transactional, like somebody trying to help you do something. So I think that's what's great about college. I'm much older than John, so we didn't overlap in college. So I met him much later on. But in any case, we did cross paths because we were both. I think we were both like-minded. We both saw the world similarly in some way.
Earlier, you talked about like having goals and sticking to them. Now, when you were my age, like 16, did you know you're going to be a neurosurgeon or just a surgeon in general?
No, unfortunately, our field has a lot of sociopaths and narcissists, and the reason for that is it has this kind of aura around it. The Buckaroo Banzai, Doctor Strange thing. Your brain's like, oh my God, and so that. And I'm not going to lie to you. It's when you're at a cocktail party and the people don't know you, say, "Oh, Dr. Dave's a brain surgeon." It's like, haha, and then you move on. You move on to the next thing. But there are a lot of people that want to do this because they want to prove something to everybody, or they need it. That they define themselves that way. And this is a common thing in our business that people decide very young they want to do this. I think that's not the best reason to do it. I kind of decided in medical school, I saw what they did. I identified with the residents. My dad had a neurological illness. I got really attracted to the social and the empathetic side of neurological disease, as well as the fabulous technical things you can do with your hands and have this amazing impact and save lives. That was, very idealistic. So, that came to me later. I think on the flip side of it, the sooner you decide, then you can set yourself up with your mentors and your research and the things that help you get ahead in the field. So it's kind of one coin's a flip of the other. It's good to decide early, but just make sure you're doing it for the right reasons. It's not just because you want to make everybody think you're cool. Or one of my chief residents says, just so you can get girls. That was, that, and this really does happen. And it's not a good excuse. And people who do it for the wrong reasons are miserable. They are, because they don't get the feedback that John and I do, and get the charge out of not only seeing our patients do well and seeing ourselves do cool things, but seeing our partners and their success, and just being so happy. It's like, whoa, you did that? That's incredible. That's the fun part of this business.
Yeah.
What about you, Dr. Bookbar? What about you? Did you know from an early age that you wanted to be a surgeon?
When I was your age at 16, I knew I was interested in medicine. I did my first medical internship at Franklin General Hospital in Valley Stream, Long Island, and it was in the summer of after my junior year, and I spent maybe 4 weeks just shadowing doctors. So I think at that age, I knew I had an underlying interest, as I said before, my father was a doctor, and that had an indelible impact on my interests. I had no idea I wanted to be a brain surgeon until I was a third-year medical student. So when I went to college, I started studying neuroscience, neuroanatomy, neuropsychopharmacology. And then when I got to medical school, I knew that neuroscience interested me. And I always say, you're like what you're good at, and you're good at what you like. And, I followed that mantra all the way through, and I started saying, I'm good at neuroscience and I like it. And I can either be a psychiatrist, neurologist, or neurosurgeon. And then, I found that I was interested in using my hands to fix problems. And, the next thing I knew, I was applying for neurosurgery.
I think I got to tell you, never take yourself too seriously, and have fun. No matter what we do, John actually I get it from him too, honestly. But you got to work hard, and this is a serious business, but you just can't take yourself too seriously. There are people who work hard, people who do amazing things in a lot of areas, and then have a good time. I mean, it's just important to enjoy yourself. If you're just busting your ass your whole life and never take time to, make a TikTok video, that's no good. Hope you've all seen our TikTok video, by the way.
Definitely. We saw the one with the COVID vaccine. You guys okay? Do you guys feel good?
Well, I'm a much better dancer than John is, so
okay.
Clear in the video.
Yeah, okay. That was definitely a lot of good advice and something to keep, and not taking yourself always seriously. I think there's a persona of neurosurgeons always being super serious, super smart. So it's really interesting to see how it's not true, and it's important to have that balance in your life.
You know what? Let's take a few questions from the comment section. So let's see. Rashima asks, what does a typical workday look like for you? Ooh.
I'll take my typical day is I never set my alarm, which is interesting. I wake up now somewhere between 5 and 5:30, just habitually, and I usually work out in the morning. COVID has changed my schedule because my train schedule got all screwed up. But I used to take a 6:28 train pre-COVID. I'm a very regimented guy, David. Yes, David knows.
I'm the opposite.
At 6:17, I shampoo. 6:18, I brush my teeth. No, I'm just kidding. So I'm at my desk at 7:07. I mark my patient at 7:15. I start my surgery at 7:45. But I like to get home, so I'm trying to, I try to take a 6 o'clock train latest. I have, unfortunately, an hour commute where David just gets to walk home. And try to spend some time with my kids. We all have a sit-down dinner somewhere between 7 and 8. I think it's important. I was raised at a 6 o'clock dinner bell every night with a family of 4 siblings and our parents. And we don't have a dinner bell, but we try to sit down, all of us, and just, even if it's for a 10-minute, crash dinner. And then, I'll spend the night either helping with homework or watching reality TV. I watch everything from, garbage reality TV like The Bachelorette to some good stuff. So, like David says, we spend a lot of time doing some fun stuff, but we let down our guard every now and then and do some silly stuff too.
Yeah, I mean, I'm divorced and my remarried. I combined families, and so I have kids and my wife, my own, and we have our own daughter, and our lives are not regimented. If I was, it's just one goat rodeo after the next. It's been this way, really for the past 22 years. It's starting to calm down because our three oldest are two of them have graduated, and my son is a senior. So, if we have dinner together, that's it varies, But I think that getting home is super important to me too. I have the luxury of being close to work, which is both a good thing and a bad thing because you're always so close that you're not rushing to make a train or you have an hour, car ride ahead of you. So I tend to linger, and but also I also find that the time here, when everything slows down, I can catch up a little bit and meet someone or talk to someone I haven't spoken to, and so it's not very organized. I am not the most organized person. I wish I was more like John. Honestly, I'm just not. I just can't. I just can't do it. But I'm also willing to do things that are kind of nuts, like take ridiculous risks, and you see things differently when you're built like me, and it puts you at risk because you can sort of get yourself overwhelmed. You can make a mistake, but I've kind of learned over the years that that's just who I am, and I really can't. It goes back to this whole point about you learning who you are, knowing what you're about, and accepting yourself is the first most important thing you can do. You can't be anybody else. You don't want to be anybody else. All you can be is you. And so just figure that out and accept it. And then from there, once you do that, you start building your pieces on top of it. I know my weaknesses. I know what I'm not very good at. So what I do is I have people around me that are better than me. And I'm not afraid of that, and I know that that's okay. And if you continue to do that, you grow comfortable with it, you will 100% succeed. Those who don't succeed try to be people they aren't, are fearful people who are stronger or smarter or better than them, so they compete with them or are jealous of them or happy for their failures or unhappy of their success. And then they're just constantly stressed, and they may make more money, they may be successful in some way or something, but internally it's a lot of anxiety. And I can tell you, I'm like the least anxious person most of the time because I just know I try to do it the best I can, and it's not just me. And so those are really the important things about finding yourself, and getting home is a huge part of that. I love my wife to death. I can't imagine my life without my wife. The most important things you choose in your life are your significant other and your work. You can't choose certain things. You can't choose whether you're going to get sick or not. You can't choose a lot of stuff. But those two decisions have the biggest impact on your life. Choose wisely. And both of them are the most important things you can do. One without the other, balance isn't necessarily it's a life. It's all one life. If you can't have balance, if you're significant other and you're going to have a good relationship, or you don't love your job, because you spend 80% of your awake life working, and the rest of that 20%, at least 80% is that spent with your significant other. Do the math. So if you want to be like happy 5% of the time, have a miserable job and hate your wife, you'll be and you'll be happy the other 5% of the time. And most of that's like just brushing your teeth and washing your hair. So I think it's really a very important thing.
Now, talking about self-belief, Sanskriti asks, was there a moment where you thought to yourself that, hey, I might not be able to do this ever?
I'll go first. Yeah, sure. If you don't have some doubt, then you're probably a little bit, you're not being honest with yourself. No one can possibly be successful feeling like they're dialed in and know 100% of the time. But I'm very self-confident. I am, not in an ego way. I just know I can do things. I know I'm capable of doing them. I'm willing to try things, but I'm willing to fail. And I won't be so hard on myself if I fail at something, because I think that's the most important thing. And then the people, if you're really worried and feeling like you aren't sure, it's more that you're just afraid to fail. So if you can just overcome that and just accept the fact that the experience is valuable, you're okay. And I think doing that a few times is how I got over it. Whenever, look, it goes without saying, you go from being a first-year medical student in 1 year, and then, 11 years later, you're a finished surgeon. I mean, think about that. Started to learn small, like how to take blood pressure, how to put an IV in, how to, do a lumbar puncture. And it just, one thing builds and builds. Along the way, there's sometimes like, oh my God, can I do this? I remember I was operating once as a resident. I reached the point of surgery. I couldn't do it anymore. I was fumbling and I got lost. And my attendings here let me take that. I was so upset. I was mortified. And I went home and I read more. And I came back, and the next time I did it, I could do it. Well, if you're not upset at yourself and not pushing yourself, then you can't get over those humps. There are definitely humps. There are definitely points of stress. But if you didn't, no one just shows up one day and they know how to be a surgeon. It's a series of failures and successes. Yet they just have to accept that no matter what you do. So yes, of course you doubt yourself, but that's part of accepting failure and moving on. John?
I know. I just want to tell you something about David's personality, which was one of the reasons why I was attracted to coming back and working with him, is his ability to think freely. And, you have to let your mind, I told you I was very regimented, but what I admire most about David is his ingenuity of thinking, and his sort of, what he describes as his freewheeling family. He actually is a freewheeling thinker in as well. And he's much more able to adapt, for example, the 3D exoscope technology, which, has changed the way he works as a surgeon. And, I wish I was that adaptable. So I can't change my muscle memory. And every time he makes me use this 3D exoscope, I'm like the Tasmanian devil. I just need to run out of the scene. I can't deal with it. So, everyone's brain is a little bit different, and, David and I are very similar in so many ways, but there are very particular ways where we're different. And I think that's what makes us so fond of each other in a lot of ways, is that we can bounce off each other in ways where we wish we were a little bit like each other in that way. So as far as the confidence, of course, I mean, to this day, there are times when, we're in a city, and you saw this in the show, we're in the city where there's a lot of competition, and I run a busy brain tumor program. We have one of the world's greatest cancer hospitals at Memorial Sloan Kettering down the street. And, I used to think, gosh, how am I ever going to compete with a major cancer center if I go to a hospital that has never had a strong neurosurgery program? And so but that is what motivates us. That's what motivates us to do better. That's what motivates us to do different. And I think you have to all act that way. You have to be motivated. You can't be afraid. Just remember this one line: no risk, no reward. No risk, no reward. I won't say it again.
The other thing that Don and John are different than I is John has more Twitter followers and more Instagram followers. At one point, I had more than him, and he's crushing me. So that's one way we're very different.
Well, you're crushing me on TikTok, and I won't be.
The truth is, I want to add one other thing: is John and I both came from very typical backgrounds. Ivy League this and that, and blah blah blah. And I think we both found it's not easy being in a place that doesn't have a name, and it's not easy being in a place that doesn't have a reputation. But what you realize is that a lot of people end up at those places because they need that. They need the name to make them feel good about themselves and to make them feel, and that's nothing wrong with it. Trust me. There are a lot of great resources at these big name institutions. There's a lot of, talented people. But there's something pretty special about having your own confidence and your own skills and walking into zero, just letting it rip. And, I was silly enough to try to do this first. John actually made an even bigger move because I wasn't in, a big major world-class university like John was. And so, we both in our own way saw the opportunity. It's hard sometimes. There's sometimes we look at each other like, what are we doing here? Because there are days where it's a very competitive city. We are totally legit. What you saw on Lennox Hill, that's completely real. None of it's made up. The story's real. The way we treat each other is real. All our decisions are real. It's 100% real. And there's not a lot of places like us. It just chaps our butts when patients choose not to come to us. It's very difficult. Talk about having doubts. The doubts come in when you can take care of somebody and they go somewhere else because, that's what they do. And then we start having that doubt creeps in, like, what the hell are we doing here? And I go, we'd be so much better. That's just, because we're so emotionally invested in what we do. And when you're the best at what you do, it upsets you that people don't come to you. And it's not about money. We make the same amount of money no matter how many cases we do. It's not about money. It's just about wanting to do what's right and wanting to work with each other and wanting to do cool things and help people. That's it. And we know that no one else thinks like that around here. And it's just a shame. But, you can't have it all, and we accept our fate in life to be this way. It's the way it goes.
Yeah, definitely. And for those who do not know, Lennox Hill is a medical docuseries on Netflix following Dr. Langer, Dr. Bookwar, and two of their colleagues from their day-to-day life in treating patients and their cases. It's a great docuseries showing how Dr. Langer and Dr. Bookwar managed their day-to-day complexities of medicine. And it's definitely like a different type of show. It's not like Grey's Anatomy, where it's like definitely not like reliable in what they actually do. But Lennox Hill is like a real and raw documentary, like showing what happens, like the highs and the lows. So it's a great show, and like definitely like you should watch it. And talking about Lennox Hill, what did you hope to like show in your role on Lennox Hill? Because it is so different.
Johnny?
I think that, David and I agree that our transparency was key. First of all, the two most important things were patient safety and patient privacy. So we knew that no matter what came out of the docuseries, that we had to protect patient safety and patient privacy. There's nothing more important. And just to give a shout out to the production company, Ulari Films and Adi Barash and Ruthie Schatz, who produced and directed the show, they knew that was the only priority. If there was ever going to be a compromise of that, it was a non-starter. So after we knew, and never, not once, was patient safety or patient privacy ever compromised. And really then it's like what David said, our goal was to just wear a mic for 18 months and show the world what our day-to-day was and what our patients were going through and what the loved ones were going through and what our wives and kids go through when we walk in the door at night, and not put any spin on it. This is, open for interpretation. It took a lot to get us, at least me, it took me somewhat to get comfortable with the idea of that exposure. And I think they did a beautiful job closing the arcs of the stories of our lives.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the opportunity was one. I had kids your age when it started. Molly's now 17, my oldest. But I had, at the time, we started in 2017, 3 years ago. So my daughter was 14, my son was 20, my daughters were 23. I knew from growing up in the social media age and watching my kids grow up, and even growing up myself, people want to be athletes or rock stars. In my era, rock stars, athletes were the big thing. Now it's like Instagrammers, YouTubers, have an app. I want to make an app, rock stars and athletes. And there's nothing, I'd say there's nothing wrong with those things. I mean, it's just they're I'd tell you something else. John and I both learned this whole celebrity thing. it's a bunch of BS. The truth is we all aspire to being celebrities, which ultimately it's a celebrity culture we live in where, we who has how many, that's why social media is so challenging. How many likes do I get? How many hearts do I get? It's like competitive. And I think that that was filtering through me for a long time without the show. And all of a sudden these people want to do a show. And I think as I thought of it, it was more like, we want to get out there what this is really like. The beauty of John and I now, we have this, I'm not going to lie to you, like being recognized is fun and being a celebrity is kind of cool, but we're not an actor and actress. We don't need this to go do our jobs every day. Like I don't have to worry about my next movie to make or my next show. And my popularity doesn't matter with my day-to-day life. And so that's a very, very gratifying thing because we can be ourselves and we can be known for being us. We can be known for being Lennox Hill Neurosurgery. We can be known for being John Bookvar. And that's very different. It's kind of like an athlete almost, but we're neurosurgeons and we're doctors and we're caring for people. And what we're known for is really, really valuable to human beings. If I could throw a football, that's great, but you're making people happy in a different way. But we want to attract the best and the brightest kids to consider this to do with their lives, no matter what your color or your sex or your sexual orientation or whatever. Because this is really, really great stuff. It's really gratifying. It's real. And it's a great life. And it's not perfect, but trust me when I tell you, those people that you look up to and you aspire to be that are on YouTube or the Kardashians or some reality, like the whatever island you're stuck on with like a bunch of people in bikini, they're not so happy most of the time because they're just focusing on the wrong things. And so John and I wanted to show how we really are, and it worked. And we hope that we do want to impact the young people. That was the purpose. It wasn't to make us famous. This was to give back and to make young people want to be brain surgeons for the right reasons. That was it, plain and simple, and to make our kids proud.
Yeah, it's so important to correctly portray like the real life behind the scenes instead of, having it completely fake. I totally love how they did that with the Netflix series. Did you find it difficult to persuade patients to share their stories on Netflix? What are the barriers that you had because of Lennox Hill?
We get asked that question all the time, and I can tell you that I would say 9 out of 10 of the patients I asked to participate said yes. And you may find that surprising, but first of all, like I said, I always reminded them that they were under no obligation to do anything. There was never going to be a compromise of their safety or their privacy. Should they want to remove themselves from the docuseries. So that was important. So many patients and their families wanted to share their stories, their emotions, their sadness, their happiness, their struggles. And they really were incredibly courageous in allowing us to tell their stories. And the majority of them wanted their stories told. And it's a beautiful thing. And I can't tell you how grateful, and I still communicate with just about all of them. And I still get emails or texts saying, we're just so grateful to have the story of our loved ones chronicled in a way for the rest of our lives.
I think the reason why was because we didn't have any fear that we were doing the wrong thing or doing things for the wrong reasons, or we were like really pure in our motivations. And so I accepted it. Like look, if there's a complication, there's a complication. If things don't go badly, that's the way it's going to go. Because if you try to sugarcoat it or, jazz it up too much or polish it, the lighting's not right, everybody's all, and what's the point of that? I mean, I think we've all seen documentaries like that. We've all seen these kind of glorified things about people that are self-promoting or are sugar-coated or aren't real. And I think that when I heard Adi and Ruthie's sort of ethic and what they were trying to accomplish, I was really excited for 2 reasons. One, you could meet them and knew they were like honest, but I knew about us. I knew about John. I knew about our team, and I knew we were unique. And I was like, if they film this, it's going to be extraordinary, and we just can't fail. And I knew it would be great if it was done, and it was better than I ever thought. I mean, the New York City stuff, the music. When John and I saw these episodes, we're like, oh my God, it blew us away. And I think the other great thing about John and I, which you could really see, you took take other like rock bands that break apart, or people get famous or get on, get noticed, and it can draw them apart actually, because you become selfish. Like you want the attention. Oh my God, he's getting that, I'm not. You start to feel it, like especially at the beginning before we used to. He would be in an interview and I wouldn't. Or my favorite line of all is I was on an interview for some Hollywood reporter, and it was just right like the second day, and they're like, a lot of people here think your partner John Bookvar is McDreamy. What do you think of that? I'm like, doesn't surprise me. So then they like, what do they think I am? They're like, you're Richard, whatever, like the administrator. So it's like, that's how people want to see me? Like, it really bothered me then. Now I like laugh about it because I sort of, your brain, you have to get your brain around this. But John and I become closer from this. I love watching him. I love to see how he reacts. I love listening, and I'd rather do one of these together with him than not with him, which says it all. Like the shared experience makes it even better. Like I can't imagine having gone through this alone, because there's a lot of jealousy and people are pissed off at us and they think this or that, or neurosurgeons shouldn't be doing this or that. And we're like, that's the way it goes, because we're real and we can have each other to confide in or talk to. And that's a great, great thing. And this is going to keep us together for a long, long time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's really interesting to see that bond, especially like with the times now with COVID-19, like more burnout, and all doctors and nurses and healthcare workers are being like overworked. And it's definitely like a more stressful situation. So how has COVID affected your profession, and how did you like adapt to these changes in your life?
Well, it's funny you mentioned burnout. Prior to COVID, about 40 to 60% of all physicians experience burnout. But actually, I think with COVID, we had a bit of burn in, meaning that it finally gave us purpose to many of the people who were disenchanted or disenfranchised from medicine. And they finally had purpose again. For example, the pulmonologists, the interventionalists, the intensivists. So I think actually COVID was great for the field. Look at, medical school applications are up, I don't want to scare you, 18%. And they're calling that due to the Boolang effect. Bookvar Langer. No, they're calling it the Fauci effect. I don't think there's going to be burnout from COVID. There's actually going to be burn in. People are back into medicine, and people are back into nursing. People are back into front lines. People are back into healthcare heroes. So I think medicine's going to have its day in the sun again, and healthcare for sure. So yeah, it's stressful, and there was nothing like the last 2 weeks in March when David and I really, we were scared for our families. We were scared for our own health at times. We were, as we've said before, it was more nerve-wracking being at home than at work, because at home I was watching Cuomo on TV, whether Trump was going to, use the Defense Production Act to get us ventilators or masks. I mean, I couldn't handle the stress. I was much better off seeing the patients, seeing that they were alive, and dealing with things very much in real time than watching on television. But there is stress in every job. There's stress in medicine. There's stress in nursing. But COVID, I think, has reinvigorated the purpose in all of us.
Yeah, I would say I agree with that. I do think it's been a very emotionally challenging 6 months. I've had a couple other things that have gone on that contributed to it, both on the medical side and some of the crap with our data that's for better or worse contributed to that. But I do think that John's right, and I think what I've realized is that what we've been able to do is we have relevance in the pandemic. If you're doing something that isn't relevant or isn't important, then you're probably burned out a little bit. You're home, you can't go to work, your work suffers, even if you have money. I mean, you had to move, like all the wealthy people in New York City left. They go to Florida, they go to the Hamptons or whatever, and they've had to totally take on new roles. Well, to me, that's the more power to them. By the same token, what are you doing with your life? What purpose do you have? When the rubber hits the road and the world is stressed and bad things are happening, do you have a role to make the world a better place? Do you have something you can do that's going to survive the pandemic? And that's important. Teachers, doctors, first responders, whoever they are, they didn't change. We went on. We're doing exactly the same thing today, right now, that we did in February of 2020. We wear masks, we use Zoom, we do telehealth. So in fact, things are even better than they were in some ways. And these meetings are a perfect example of that. I mean, we wouldn't be doing this if it wasn't for COVID. So I think the world's much better in medicine than it was before because technology really accelerated. I think we did derive a sense of satisfaction of being valuable. We saw that in the 7 o'clock claps. We saw it on, the world recognizes healthcare people as valuable. John and I are getting our vaccines tomorrow together. We're going to do this together. And even the fact that we make a TikTok and 800,000 people look at it, that wouldn't have happened 6 months ago. And so we're able to put all these pieces together. Being a physician is a great thing, with or without COVID. COVID is just all of a sudden, the world understands that. It's opened their eyes. Lennox Hill helped that. COVID helped that. All the attention helped that. That's not a bad thing. But respect the fact that even if you're not a doctor, do something that matters, because you don't want to do something that doesn't matter when people really need it most. And you'll regret it. It's good to be valued in tough times. It really is. You go home with your head high. You put your kids to sleep. They know they have a parent that's valuable. They learn from that. They learn by example. It's a great thing.
There's a lot of stress, I feel like, especially on doctors during the COVID times, of course. Alina asks, how do you handle stress of patients and their families, especially with the speed needed in the occupation?
This is John's wheelhouse.
Well, I think both of us, we recognize that we weren't trained, by the way, in how to handle stress. When Dave and I trained, there was an expectation that we just would somehow handle the emotional aspect. No one taught us about the emotional component of what we were about to endure. So it's sort of, you learn on the way, and you just develop coping strategies along the way. I think that I personally have developed my own coping strategies. I know David and I cope similarly, in that we wear our emotions on our sleeve. We're surely not bottle it up kind of people. And I think we share our emotional struggles. Like David said, if there's a complication that I have, he's the first one I go crying to. And if it's an emotional, experience that I'm having with the family, I'm surely not going to bottle it up or sweep it under the rug. But it's a balance. You have to be able to be compassionate. You have to be emotional, and then you have to be able to turn it off and be a surgeon, and not catastrophize during surgery if stuff is going badly. So, it's a challenging thing. I think it goes back to developing the muscle memory, both physically and emotionally. Getting yourself used to those situations takes very deliberate practice and mentorship and camaraderie and friendship along the way that helps you through it.
Yeah, but I think John answered that question from like a personal level, which is so true. On the macro view is, if you don't set yourself up in the right culture and environment, those things become much worse. If your guy next to you is talking about you and is excited the fact that you screwed somebody up because now he can get cases, or is someone who, you don't feel like when you go to talk to somebody, they actually really care, that's not where you want to work. And if you have those resources with you, if your partners and your people you work with really care and really want to see you succeed, it takes away some of that pain, because when you come back to your office or after work and sit down and have a drink or whatever, that you're going to get support, and it softens it a little bit. It just allows it to flow through you more. We all suffer. No question. There's a lot of stress in our business. There is. I mean, even today, I was doing an aneurysm case, and we use this electrical monitoring to monitor the function of the brain. All of a sudden, it all goes to shit. It goes to zero. I'm like, what the? And we were like done. And I'm like, what? You think back. What am I doing? And all of a sudden, you change what you're doing, and you go back. You're going to open up again. You're going to look. And then all of a sudden, things start to improve again. It was just like an artifact, meaning it wasn't real. But the stuff just you feel in the pit of your stomach. You feel this anxiety, this burning. And I'm not gonna lie to you. Sometimes you're like, "What the hell am I doing this for?" But the truth is that the reason why we do it is because we like the challenge, we like to push ourselves, and we like to do hard things, and we like to really help people. And there are a few things you can do in life that allow you to do that. There are a lot of people who do hard things. There are a lot of people who do difficult things that make them feel good. But on the flip side of that, the outcome of saving a life and helping someone. That's the flip side is people get pissed off at us sometimes when things don't go well. We get sued. We get called the principal's office by the HR because we screamed at somebody or whatever. And the bandwidth you need to do this job well it's ridiculous. And it's just endless. But that's what makes it really exciting and keeps you coming back.
Yeah. Okay, so we're like running out of time. So I'm going to be encompassing like a couple of our members' questions. So it's just, can you talk about how you feel before surgery? How's it like in the surgery room? And like, what is the longest surgery you did?
Well, in the interest of time, I'm just going to sort of summarize that, and I said this in the show, we really can't predict anything when we come into work. Like David said, our simple cases may go badly, our bad cases may go well. We basically prepare like we're robots, and I think the muscle memory has to take over. And I don't like to think during surgery. And when I have to think, it's usually when I bring David in because you need sort of that objectivity. I like to. We talk about flow state. Being in a flow state during surgery where you've developed the repetitiveness of your practice where you don't really have to think and enjoy what you're doing so much that it just becomes it's not work anymore. And that's what we hope to achieve. Dave and I have talked about getting into the flow channel where your skill always meets the challenge that you're being given. And that to me is what I strive for in every case that I do.
Yeah, I mean, I think as you get older, I do less mental preparation, volitionally, but it's always like, so when I get there, you know where your head has to be. I get quiet. John is to this timeout, this mindful moment, which I adopted, which I think really helps. I know it's coming. I know I can stop for a second. I really like that. And so in the end, though, as you get more knowledge and you get more success at what you do, Einstein wrote that ego equals 1 over knowledge. So your ego gets smaller. So there's less you worry about. You just go there, you can do this, and you show up, and you're prepared, and your team is prepared, and then you let it rip. And that's really the way I deal with it.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Dr. Langer and Dr. Bookbar, for your time. You have definitely given us, the high schoolers, so much advice and definitely inspiration to pursue medicine. Alliance HOSA would like to thank you so much, and we're definitely honored to be able to hear from you. And to close out the night, would like to thank our viewers, all of the high school students, for joining us in this conversation and making it really interactive. We're going to leave a QR code for attendance for 30 seconds, and it'll be closed on Monday morning. The video is going to be posted soon on our YouTube channel.
I love those pictures of us. They're like 10 years old.
I know, right? Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Best of luck. Happy holidays.
Yes. We just finished our midterms. Yay.
Good luck.
And also, you must have good teachers, too. I see Janice here.
Yes.
So,
Coach, yes.
The fact that they encourage you guys to do this kind of stuff is great. And it shows that they don't mind getting other people's opinions into their students' heads. So they must be great people too. So you should give them a big thank you.
We love you, Coach.
I'm
Okay.
gonna go walk my puppy in a foot of snow. Okay.
Enjoy.
Okay.
All right. Bye.